Hello, folks. Welcome to yet another exciting channel broadcast from our CardboardCulture channel about card. I'm going to start over there because I completely screwed that up, and we'll scrub it out at the beginning. Let's start again. Hello, folks. Welcome to our show tonight. We've got a good one. But before we get into it, I want to let you all know it is show number 34. And originally, when we first started this show, I wanted to get Charles Barkley on, and that was kind of pie in the sky. Maybe we'll try it for episode 134. Anyways, let's get back on topic. We want to first thank Sunday's guest, Pavel Bartko, from joining us all the way from the Czech Republic. He showed us a lot about the insights from where he is in that part of the world, and a lot of synergies and what hobby shops have to deal with. Stuff that he can't deal with because he is in Europe and competing against North American buyers. And he also talked about his collection of Dominic Hasek. So that was interesting to know where all those 3,100 unique cards are. They're in his possession. So maybe one day in the future we'll have him on. But I'm going to pass this over to my good buddy Kent, because this is a topic that's near and dear to Kent. He is very much a collector of coins. So Kent, you have the honors.
Thanks, Amit. So for tonight's guest, we're honored and happy to introduce you to a young man who is what is known as a numismatist. What is a numismatist, you say? It's one who studies and or collects coins. Yes, we'll be talking about the world of coin collecting, the synergies of coin collecting, and card collecting. Please welcome the host of the YouTube channel Treasure Town, Christian Hartch, to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Kent?
Hey. Good. Good.
How are you?
Doing well. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being on tonight's show for us. So, Christian, can you give us a little introduction as to how numismatics started for you, and when did it all start, and what is it about coin collecting that keeps you hooked to this day?
Definitely, yeah. So, started out, I always forget exactly what age it would have been, but 4, 5, or 6, somewhere in that range. There's these Whitman folders. I think I've got one. I think this is the original one here, and my dad got it for me. Knew that I sort of like coins.
Oh yes, I remember those.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, for those of you that may not know, here we've got all sorts of different spots to find. Maybe if you're looking through your change, I was just looking through pennies that were worth 1 cent and try to fill out a folder with the different dates and mint marks. And so that was a fun thing for me to do. When I was 12, there was a coin shop that moved into town, saw about it in the local newspaper, and I showed up at their doorstep, right when they opened the first day, and developed a relationship with the owner. About 2 years later, when I was 14, I asked if I could sort of have an internship job for that summer, and then did that for about 4 or 5 summers up to, I'm currently 21, maybe when I was 19. Now, about 4 years ago, so when I was about 17, started making videos just for fun, sharing some of the knowledge that I had about coins and numismatics and collecting in general, because the niche was pretty underexplored. There's still a lot of room open in it. But it worked out well, started getting some views, and it became a more serious thing. So that brings us to today, where I do a little bit of buying and selling, but I'm really core focused on making both entertainment, but also a lot of informational content for people, sort of to encourage them in their coin collecting, precious metals, and anything treasure related. I was ambiguous with the channel name. So it's been fun, and that's sort of what keeps me in it. Just bring that love of collecting. I think it's a great thing to do, a really good and productive hobby. When you look at a lot of the ways you can spend your time these days, I think that something, innocent and fun and maybe a little tied to value is a really cool thing to be able to be a part of.
Well said. Well said. So now you mentioned that I guess you were 17. So what made you decide to put your love of collecting into a YouTube channel, and how did you come up with the name Treasure Town?
Yeah, so I mean, I just felt like I thought it would be fun to make a few YouTube videos, and I think I did a channel when I was like 13, and that didn't take off. And I said, I put it down, and then I decided to go for it again once I'd actually been working in a shop and had some knowledge that I felt I could share. Now, looking back, I think I have a lot more perspective now, and in 3 or 4 years, I'll have way better perspective then. Treasure Town, I think I wanted alliteration. I wanted treasure, so that I wasn't just streamlined into coins or coin roll hunting, which is what I started. And now I do that less on my channel or any one specific niche. So treasure, maybe I'll pick up a new entire field of collecting, and I'll be able to bring that joy to others. So that's sort of how it came about.
Wow. So with the channel itself, and now it's kind of ingrained with a lot of followers. What were you hoping to do with it, and has it turned out how you hoped?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think sometimes I get to talk about. I rarely sort of get to give the outsider perspective on this, so this is a fun thing to talk. I mean, I started just making coin roll hunting videos. Basically, go take a box of 2,500 pennies, like $25 worth of pennies from the bank. You annoy them, then you get the rolls, and you look through and you look for either if it's wheat pennies. These were coins like 1958 and back. There's probably going to be like 5 to 10 in each box, and they're worth a few cents. But then there's also some other things that you can look for, whether that's like a mint error where there was a problem producing the actual striking of the coin, or a variety, which is when they are making the dies that are used to strike the coins. Maybe there's a mess up in that process. So there's a lot to look for. And anyways, I was doing that, sharing it with my viewers, as well as, I'm getting too long, but with $half, you can be looking for silver coins. There's a lot to look for. It's not too economic in terms of what's a good use of your time, but I love doing it. And so I was just sharing that. Now, I made a few videos that were like, here are some of those varieties or some of the errors that you can look for. Those started doing really, really well, whereas my coin roll hunting content was not. So since then, I've sort of pivoted, instead of being like the coin roll hunting sort of short entertainment where my viewers might see it and then put it away. Rather, I'm trying to build out the informational infrastructure where people can quickly sort of find the information that they want to on their specific coin, and then at the same time doing some other content that is more entertainment focused. So not as much the information, because the information, it's compelling to do because I can put up a video and I'll get views like 2 years after I put it up. Often either the entertainment sort of strikes out, or then it'll do well in the beginning, but then taper off. A few cases it does well, but the info is so good at indexing in and helping people for years to come that's sort of been a directional shift where I've taken the channel.
That's awesome. And in the short few minutes, just so everyone is aware, I didn't get a chance to meet Christian ahead of this show. So this is very much a trial as we go with the live show. And so far, you're very well spoken for your age. So I appreciate that. And just the way you're explaining yourself, it's very good. So I'm sure your content, as I've seen, is also equally as good, and I'll check out more. Just for the people who've joined, I want to quickly say hi to Dennis. So Dennis checks out all of our shows. So thanks for coming by. Rob Lee has come by for quite a few shows, so hi there. Thanks for coming. And this is Richie. So Richie's a friend of ours from New York with a very thick accent. We have a local card show happening in November, so he's gonna come up to see us. And Richie, if you want to show Panini gold and silver cards, you can probably Facebook Messenger me, and I can bring the pictures up if they're applicable. But basically, what he's trying to get at is similar to how you're talking about gold and silver coins. There's a manufacturer of trading cards, and they produce gold and silver cards. And we've had precious metal gems. So just so you're aware, you said precious metals earlier, and there's a huge synergy in trading cards around precious metal gems. So we do a lot of like rubies, golds, et cetera, and they're huge in basketball and taking off in hockey right now. They just released a product. We'll come back to that, but it's an interesting synergy already. That's what you said, and that. For those of you who are watching, please don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, or hit the like button. It helps the YouTube, I should say, algorithm with our shows. And the same goes for Christian. If you stumble on his channel and go to his channel, please do the same for him as well. So, going to get back to questions here. Your channel obviously has a fairly sizable following, and I want to get a perspective from you, like, why is coin collecting so popular, especially with someone as young as you? Because I traditionally, and maybe incorrectly, assume that people older than you are coin collectors.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is still the bulk. If you look at my viewership analytics, it's probably the strongest segment is maybe 45 to 54 and then 55 to 64. But it also, there's going to be already a younger skew because who's like consuming YouTube. So I think that it is still a testament to the fact that the collecting base is older, just because it used to be a much bigger part of sort of culture. There was a booming market, I believe, in the 70s. And that's sort of fallen out. But at the same time, there's a lot of people inheriting collections, and they sort of get into it to look. I mean, there's people who are sort of interested in gold and silver, and then sort of that's a segue into the collecting world. though it is interesting how divorced our current monetary system is from the sort of traditional silver and gold that it was based on. So I think that awareness is lessening. I think that it hasn't been hugely documented, but I think I saw a few headlines, and so headlines, without reading the article, may be off, that a little bit of the crypto gains sort of spill into gold and silver and some other collectibles markets, not just coins. But there's a lot of people who are older watching. There's a lot of people who are younger, and there's also just a lot of people. So if you have 300 million people or so in the States and 7 billion around the world, it's not, maybe if 1 in 10,000 or so are really collecting, that's cool for me. And if we could get that to 1 in 100, that would be a really good situation to be in.
It's interesting because collecting is very much a first world problem. Collecting is more for affluent nations and stuff like that. So as collecting grows, and maybe when Kent and I and maybe yourself, we start getting more along in our journey in the podcasting, we might meet people from other areas of the world that maybe have collections we aren't aware of. But yes, if we can grow that number, it's kind of crazy. Out of a world of 7 billion people, when we're looking at our shows and we have 56 views, you're like, come on, people, come on. There's people out there. So I touched upon the one point earlier about, the kind of the false pretense that I had that collectors of coins are older, but you just quickly pointed out and maybe validated to some degree is in your channel statistics. You see older people are viewing your content, but obviously you're a young person that's creating the content. So how do you see yourself getting younger generations in the hobby? Or have you noticed an uptick? Or maybe we can just comment a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of there's a lot of potential for even more of a runway and sort of a boom in collectibles. I think maybe I'll probably maybe in a few weeks or months have some videos out on why there could be a boom. There's also some potential pullback reasons, but I think that a lot of people appreciate history. A lot of people appreciate art, and those I've seen as big reasons why I enjoy collecting the coins that I do, because I do some dealing and then I do a limited amount of collecting. But when I'm collecting, I'm looking at the history and the art, because they really do tell a story often around the world, but also understanding US. It's money. Money is so important in our time, and so it's like a monetary history of the States is going to hit a lot of the important general historical themes, and sort of you can trace it through. So I think that the history argument you can sort of give people, I think it's less why I love it, or like maybe this shouldn't be the reason, but there's a lot of money to be made. I think anybody, especially who's younger, but like the shop owner that employed me for like 4 summers, I think he started doing dealing in his 40s, and he has a great business. It's a really viable career path. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of careers in cards, or maybe that's sort of starting to become more apparent to people, but coins has been a big ecosystem. So for people looking, whether it's making a few $100 a month, or there's dealers definitely in the 7 figures range year in, year out.
Wow.
These are the really, really talented people, because there's worlds and worlds. But it's definitely something that can support people from being able to flip or make a buck. That certainly attracts people too.
Especially from now that, with COVID, actually prior to COVID, but COVID exacerbated or expedited the online marketplaces. So it makes it easier to do it from your own chair, right?
Totally.
The other thing that COVID has done for younger generations, and actually any generation, I should say, is makes it easier to work for yourself almost, right? So going back to what you said, there's a lot of synergies with the sports card collecting hobby, like the things that you resonate and that you spoke about. So I wanted to kind of, we have to be engaged all the time to continually see it grow, right? And you're doing that with your content. Now, do you talk to, this is quite a little bit of a segue off our question, but do you know of other collectors that are your age that do collect coins, or are you kind of a diamond in the rough?
Yeah, no, I was recently at Witter Coin U. Seth Chandler owns Witter Coin. It's a shop in San Francisco. They sponsored like 20 or 25 under 21s to go out and spend a week talking with him and other dealers. There's also the American Numismatic Association. They put on a summer seminar, but it's been canceled the past 2 years. So Seth sort of stepped in to fill that gap. There's definitely people who are quite involved. I think that you see a few more dealers as opposed to collectors my age, the proportion, just because it's expensive often to collect.
Sure.
So somebody will start collecting a little bit, realize that they have a good eye and that they can start making money doing it, and then they're more often more of a dealer than a collector. But there's people all over the map on it. So and there's a lot of ways to collect at a pretty low budget. So I think that there are a fair amount of collectors my age. I'll get comments, and I always like seeing it's like some 12 or 13-year-old saying like, I'm so young, but I like doing coins, and like I like the history behind it. So it's nice to see that. Sort of, yeah. So I would say the answer is that while it still skews old, I think that social media is bringing in a lot of people and sharing the excitement of the hobby, and people sort of see that excitement and catch on, and those do target a lot of younger collectors.
For sure. And I also find that with the advent of social media, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but a good portion that I've met, with the advent of social media, just online presence, that you become more sophisticated, so you're able to command your presence in a better light. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Some athletes need to take lessons from you guys. I'm gonna turn it over to Kent to take us to the next batch of questions.
So Christian, now reflecting back on your very first episode from like 4 years ago to your latest episode, which I believe is like number 740. I believe I counted it. I counted them all. How does it feel for one to know that you've completed that many videos, and what are the key things you've learned along your YouTube channel journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think at one point I read some article because I was sort of just excited about getting like 100 subscribers, and they were saying you got to get to 100 videos. Sure. So that number, I think we're well beyond 100 at this point. Like you mentioned, I didn't realize it was up to 740. Maybe in a year we'll be above 1,000. I think I've definitely learned a lot, and I've shifted my content. And the thing is, I've learned so much, and I still have so much to learn, but I didn't know how much I did not know when I started out. So I don't know. I've got tons and tons of content left to talk about. I'm a little more strategic about viewing it as both something I really enjoy doing, but also thinking about the business aspect of things. But I've realized that I really enjoy collecting coins and learning about coins. That's certainly been confirmed. I enjoy sort of fostering the community around it, and I've met a lot of really cool people along the way. So I don't know if I'm fully answering the question, but I've definitely evolved a lot since those first videos, and will continue to.
I would say me and I are in the same boat. We like, even though this is episode number 34, just for our show alone, we've made a lot of friends. We've met a lot of people so far, and it's just the reach has not just been local; it's been actually global. Just this past Sunday, we had a fellow from the Czech Republic. We've had a young lady from Australia, Melbourne. So yeah, we're making inroads. You're connecting with people. You all have similar interests. So yeah, I get it.
That's
Sure.
awesome. What have been some of your favorite moments along your guys' YouTube journey, would you say?
Oh, wow. I'll start. So I don't want to alienate any of our guests, but I had to say one of the most fun I had was with I'm forgetting names right now, but the stamp collectors. What are the names?
Charles and Michael.
Yes. That was an awesome show, because we want to keep the content to about an hour, right? And I think we talked for 2.5 hours. There was just so much. There was just so much to talk about, and we got along so well, even though we have our own respective journeys from collecting, right? And then they reciprocated our show on their channel, so that was fun. I would say my second favorite moment was the first show we ever did, because I was nervous as hell. I've watched it once in the last 2 weeks, and it's brutal, but I'm leaving it there. It was absolutely brutal. So, and the reason I bring that up, because at the beginning, when I introed the show, I made a bit of a mistake, but I was like, whatever, just move on. I'm not going to delve too much into it, right? So you grow. So those are my moments. Kent, go ahead.
For me, I think it's the diversity of the guests we've had on our show so far. We've had young collectors, female collectors, older collectors. We've had guests on our show that are just artists who just draw on trading card size canvas, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way as me. We don't want to alienate any one particular guest. We love all of our guests so far. So, and each of our guests have taught us something, and it's all about their journey, and we're just sharing their journey.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What about you? Great question to you.
I think it's got to be meeting people who have really gotten inspired by it. When I was at Witter, there's some kids doing a lot more volumes coin dealing, and they're younger than I am, and they're like, either I started collecting because I came across a video, or like I would watch all of them when I was sort of getting into it and getting really quite inspired by it. So I think it's tangible. There's people I know that there's people who are now full time doing something. I know one guy who's in precious metals, but there's people who are now have their profession after they sort of got inspired and checked out a show. So that's been cool, like to have a positive impact
Really
on other
cool.
people.
Nice.
I would agree with that statement. Yes, that's what we hope to do with our show.
Yeah.
We've inspired a few people. I believe.
Yes, we had. Well, I might as well speak about it here. We had a young lady who, because of watching our show, she felt inspired to go back to school. So
Oh, that's so awesome.
that was like after the third or fourth show. So that meant a lot to me, and I still have the message screen capped on my phone. That still means a lot to me. And she still reaches out and talks to me to this day. That's what we want to do. We want to inspire and for the world to be a better place. And also one of the answers to your question earlier, why did we start the channel? This is our way of giving back to the community through our collecting. So we can give some positivity and inspiration and people to be good to each other, right? Respect, get rid of sexism, get rid of racism and all that stuff. And people just respect each other and love each other for who they are. That if we can do that through our hobby, then that's worth its weight in gold for me. Pardon the pun. We're talking about coins. But anyways, gold and silver for me. So yeah.
Totally. No, there's so much in. I just think I sort of think about doing good and sort of being honorable. And I think that like this whole niche is a really positive community. Obviously, there's outliers in every one, but what you were talking about, I mean, I think that there's no room, but there's also not much room to invite a lot of the sort of isms that we want to not have in society. I think that it's like a really healthy thing to be spending time doing, especially even if it's I probably shouldn't get into this, but like watching a ton of TV shows, I like watching TV, but like it's really fun for me. It's in my spare time. I'm often working on Treasure Town, like and it's like reading or something like that. Like I think that people really get a lot out of the hobby, especially compared to some of the easy like scrolling social media or something. Like understanding our place in history by having a good sense of the evolution of coins. I just think it's a really cool thing. So I applaud you, and I think it's fun to all be in it together.
And it's also a credit to you too as well, because and I'm not trying to be like we're the only ones that do it. There are other people that do it too, but it's our way of contributing to content, right? So it's alternative content that other people can view and watch on their own, right? And get something from it, right? There is the segment of the population that does need the fodder, I would say. I'd like to step away from that and say we're a little bit above that. I want to give an example. Like, for example, I want to quickly say hi to Yannick. So Yannick, thank you for joining. And then Indigenous Rookie Card. So this is a dear friend of our show, a good friend of myself personally. His name is Name, and his focus is all about raising awareness through collecting hockey cards of Indigenous players, rookie cards. So through his story, people have learned the history of Indigenous culture, its importance to hockey, and we've been educated, and now we've done videos to say, hey, there's more to life than just cards, right? So it's a bit of we're doing this together, and that's also why we want to do this show. Right? We want to invite other collectors because the perspectives I think from collecting, and I'm thinking about this the other day, is takes the focus away from looking at each other and looking at an object, and then you're just looking at that object. Right, it becomes the object of your attention, and you're looking at, oh wow, I like to collect this. This is neat. Oh look, it's glowing. It's shimmery. It gets us away from all the isms that we need to ignore, right? And that's also why we brought like a lot of as Kent mentioned it earlier, we have been featuring trying to get a lot more women on the show to talk about how women are collecting cards and showing that equality exists there, and there's more people out there than you know. So. Sorry, went a bit on a tangent there because you touched a part of something that's very near and dear to me, and I'm proud of it. Even though we're only 34 shows and we don't have thousands of subscribers yet, I'm proud of the content we've done, and the fact that you're speaking to it the volume of it is amazing.
That's wonderful.
I completely lost where we are, Kent.
That's okay. I kind of know where we are, so we'll
okay,
just
you go for it.
get back to some of the questions we had here for Christian. So you mentioned cornroll hunting earlier. Can you share with us how does one go about this, and what's the excitement around cornroll hunting in itself?
Yeah, so it's a little tricky because there's still some coin shortages right now, so it's a little easier to do pre-COVID. But the essence of cornroll hunting is banks get wrapped rolls of coins from distributors, basically normally other banks that are collecting coins, their coin machines, or it's coming from the mint because people need to use coins, to spend as money. But there's some cool ones that are normally in that mix. So whether it's silver, whether it's one of the the mint errors or the varieties, problems that have occurred at the mint. There's some fun things where if you can buy a bunch of these coins for the face value, the only thing you're going to be losing is like gas money and your time. And maybe sometimes if you buy a roll where it's like a quarter roll and there's like a foreign coin in there, that's really the downside. But you can make some cool finds. I haven't. Some people make finds worth tens of thousands of dollars. It's more people who know people. Like second tier friends. I've personally the best find that I've made probably in the $80 range, but that's still pretty good. And there's been a few times where I've gotten sort of silver caches, like a little mini hoard that's worth probably $400 or so. Like it's
Wow.
it's not bad. The extreme upside is tough to come by, and it was a lot better to be doing 10 years or 20 years ago, certainly. But it's something that I do a little bit less now as there's more demand, honestly, for time pulling me in other directions with having the channel be built out a little more. Plus, like from a monetary perspective, it's pretty challenging, to be hitting even like a $10 an hour clip with your efforts going roll hunting. So I enjoy doing it just for the fun of finding stuff and then really tying that into making some content out of it. But there's so many ways that you can take it, and it's like a fun, free treasure hunt. I would compare it to like fishing or something like that.
So Christian, what you mentioned earlier, so one of your top finds was like an $80 fine. What was the exact specifications of that particular coin?
Yeah, so it was a 1936 penny. There's three main
Oh
varieties,
wow,
and
1936.
yeah. So it's a normal 1936 in the condition I found it in, maybe it's worth like 10 cents, 15 cents, but it had one of those varieties. So it was a double die obverse, which means that when they were producing the dies, which then are used to strike the coins, they left a doubled impression on that die basically. So it looks, if you look closely, it's not really apparent. The most apparent ones are worth a ton more than $80, but I'm thinking of the 1955 double die obverse. If
Yes,
people
the
want to look that up,
1955. Yes.
yeah, exactly. So it's not that apparent, but it was good. You can see it with your naked eye if you're looking closely. So that one was there was three of these varieties for 1936. This one was the second of them, and it's a cool coin. I think the second best individual find would have been it's sort of crazy. So 1959 or 1859 to 1909, they're making Indian head pennies. That's the term for it. And I haven't found one of those. They're relatively common, but I did find a Civil War token, which is from 1863. There's a huge shortage. It's great. And I've searched definitely hundreds of thousands of pennies. Haven't found an Indian head penny, which is worth like $1 in the average condition I'd find it in. That the coin maybe is like a $30 find or so, $35. But for a little history for the people out there, we have a huge coin shortage, really at almost most times in early U.S. history, because there's still a focus on gold and then silver a little bit, and we were using like chopped up Spanish coins and coins from Mexico, France. There wasn't really, it was only the Coinage Act of 1857 bans all of that. But in the Civil War time, coinage isn't circulating, not a ton's being produced, and a lot of people still need to transact because back then 1 cent there were half cents that were circulating at that point. That there's this flood of these 1 cent coins by private minters, private issuers, and it's a huge thing in coin collecting, a really not that well covered niche that there's a ton of history and sort of again speaks to the US history. But the one I found was more relatively common, but I paid 1 cent for it, so it was fun to find it, and would have been used to alleviate this shortage. 1863 comes around, or I think it was 63 when they banned it. Maybe it was 64, but I'm pretty sure 63. The U.S. government has already cracked down in 1857, saying we need to be using U.S. coins in America, and then there's no 1864 Civil War tokens to be found.
Just so you know,
isn't that one of your favorite eras?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, Civil War history is something I love. I love Civil War history. And what's interesting is when we were talking to the stamp collectors, we talked a little about Civil War history there. When we talked to a collector of Goodwin champions, I'm forgetting all sorts of names right now. But anyways,
it's Joey.
Joey, he talked about Civil War, and you mentioned Civil War, and it's something I want to do actually as a show idea. And I might do something where I bring you on, or bring the stamp collectors on, or get all on, just to talk about Civil War history, because Civil War history is fascinating.
Yes.
It is absolutely fascinating. That era in U.S. history is so messed up, and yet so fascinating and so heavily collected. And just a fun fact for you, and you may know this already, in Canada, there are no more pennies.
Yeah, I would, if we were going and saying, what's the actual probably right thing to do, I would say maybe it's time for the penny to go. Maybe we could shift Lincoln onto a different denomination. But it's and I think Australia's phased it out. I was making a video, Switzerland, I think it was like 2006. I was doing a fun fact. That video's, anyways, what do you guys think? I think it's logically the penny is a relic of the past.
Oh, penny is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, in high school, we used to flick pennies at each other. That's like how valuable they were, right? We would literally you do this trick and it would flick across the room. I'm glad it's gone, but I mean, at the time, I was really glad it's gone. But now with crypto coming in and less need to print money and make money, I have a little bit of a sadness there for it, because I think it's going that way. Kent, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say pennies weren't really a thing. Like, even for me, when I was younger, we would lay pennies on a railroad track and watch the train run them over.
Yeah, we would try to bend pennies. Yeah, I remember that.
And this kind of leads me into my next question, actually. So coins, just like stamps, especially in North America, have evolved over the years from gold, silver, and then the nickel and copper, which is zinc, steel, plated alloys. And we just touched upon it. For example, in Canada, we've eliminated the penny, and we've also replaced our $1 and $2 bills with coins up here. So, Christian, where do you see the future of coins and coin collecting in general headed?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be some different divergences. I think that there is. So on one hand, the really high ends. Well, okay, I'll bring it back. I think I think collecting is not going to die. That's been some people who are relatively high up who I've spoken with said that at points that they thought would, but basically the social advent of social media has really brought things back to a much healthier position. There's also a lot more infrastructure being built out around authentication, grading, and there's a lot of tie-overs between the coins where the advent of grading, I think it was like 86, 87 for coins. But anyways, there's a lot more sort of aspects of the market and information that's really readily available online, to the point where for really high-end coins, I think that people can sort of see it as art. And I try to stay away or like be nuanced when I talk about investing, but I think that people are willing to spend a lot more money on coins. And as there's lots of money being produced in the high end of society, for the really high net worth individuals, I think that coins are something that's viable to them, and then that trickles down and sort of supports the whole market. There's also a big tie-in with precious metals, gold and silver. A lot of coins still just trade for their bullion value. And in a world, crypto is just another example of people not necessarily being confident in government-backed systems of money, or just really, at this point, it's all online. So it's like just everybody accepting that everybody has a certain amount of numbers in the cloud. So I think that is also a catalyst for collecting. And I think, again, like, people do appreciate art and history. There's a lot of things tying everybody's attention or vying for it. But I think that it's sort of a fun thing to do. So, and when there's a little bit of value tied in, or a lot, or potential for career, it's something that will keep going. I think that there's also some of the lower end, there's always been a problem. I think it's less so with sports cards, just because most of the time in the past, governments have been the issuers of the money, of the coins, physical stuff.
Yeah, right.
There's like junk wax era with cards that was challenging. But there's a fair amount of like marketed product where they're just taking 10-cent coins or $1 coins, putting them in fancy, not government produced packaging, and then trying to sell to like often older people who don't really understand that they're being taken advantage of at like 100 times markup, or even 20 times markup, like a $1 coin getting sold for $29.95. And so that I don't think has spilled into cards quite as much. And I think that sort of thing will continue, but it's going to get worse and worse as there's more awareness of sort of the deceiving practices of marketers, often through channels like my own, and just general common knowledge, the availability of information that the internet provides. So that part is going to be dying. I think that people are going to flock to really good coins. There's a lot that goes into good, but that's my long answer.
No, it's a good answer, and
That's a good answer.
It's a good answer. And there's also when you talk about grading coins, there is another synergy or parallel path. I don't know if we're going to bring it up in our later questions. I can't remember, but
we will be.
So there is a grading company that we share that does both coins and cards. So we'll get into that. I won't ruin it right now. I want to first say, Dennis brought up a question here. He said, the reason I love this show is the diversity of, or the collection of people that collect. Yes, thank you very much, Dennis. That is a very good point. I also feel that with enough content and attracting people to this kind of content, it'll grow over time. We just need to keep producing the content, and people will come. It's like a field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. So you kind of brought up a couple things that are really interesting. So we talked about crypto, and I want to go in that direction right now, right? So you did already talk about your opinion of cryptocurrency. And I did mention I have the sadness for the fact that physical coins are going away. Did you want to kind of talk about, do you ever see money truly going away? The physical money going away?
I think I could envision a situation in which we have a digital dollar. I think the amount of power that the US government wields because of their ownership of the world's reserve currency, I think that they're going to do everything that they can to prevent something like decentralized, like Bitcoin being used, because then they can't really collect taxes if it was being used in like a fully non-reported way. So I think that they're going to be and all of the different countries, whether it's the Eurozone with the euro or the Chinese with the yuan, they're all going to sort of wield their monetary influence. That's really what gives countries power. So I think that would be very challenging to imagine a full transition away. I think it would make sense, to see less cash. I think it's certainly going that way, and as we have more seamless ways to transfer that money, maybe crypto, less so maybe Bitcoin, but there's a lot of uses, whether it's like a stable coin or whether it's just sort of using that infrastructure to move money around quickly and efficiently. I could see that. So I think that the way we see money will change. I think the US dollar is probably the lifeline of the United States of America. So they're going to do whatever they can to maintain that, just like all the other countries out there are going to focus.
Well, it's more than just US. It's a global currency. Like there has been ripples. what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember the word right now, but there has been hints of people trying to get away from the US dollar. That's not going to happen. The US dollar controls the global economy, and everything's measured in US dollar. And if I even want to take this one step further, for example, the housing market, like the US interest, the US central, what is the central agency called that?
The Federal Reserve or the
Federal Reserve, yes, handled interest rates. If they move the interest rate, guess what? The whole world moves their interest rate, right? So there's definitely some power there. So I don't think it's going to go away. I do think, though, crypto, they can tax it, I think, to some degree, because it's easier to trace digitally, unless there is. I don't know enough about it to comment on it, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know the answer, but there might be ways to foil that traceability. I don't know. I'm sure there's some dark web plays here, and I think it's a lot of money laundering conversations as well with crypto. So I'm sure there's more coming from that as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think also to sort of add to that point, like one big thing, a huge catalyst for gold and silver prices would be, and it's just not going to happen, but I am of the view that it should happen, and same with crypto, is that, like, can you get paid in gold? Right now, you can't be. There's people who've gone to jail for that. So and like you can be paid in crypto, but you're going to have to, the day of, I guess, report it as though you've received that in the equivalent amount of US dollars. So it's sort of it's taxable, but it's not like, you can't theoretically own a Bitcoin for $10 and then buy, a half of a house in a rural location with that Bitcoin and then say that you've bought it for $10. It's always being dollar denominated. So I think that's another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, there's so many things like that we can go into that requires. Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. So we're still talking about synergies of collecting. The one thing I just thought of, I just realized this now with the stamp collectors, from modern day stamp collectors and modern day coin collectors.
Yep.
The only difference between them and us is when they do coin roll hunting and opening up stamp packages to find stamps, the value of their package doesn't decrease. It's what you paid for it. Ours, you can open a pack of cards that's $100, you can come walk away with two. Right?
That's very true.
There is that unfortunate parallel, which I just thought of, which kind of made me have a pit in my stomach just thinking about it. Because I'm just already throwing money away into the river, which you guys are picking up and finding valuable. Anyway, that's a different story. So we want to know, one of the most popular things in any collectible industry, and I say industry or segments rather, or vertical, I can't remember which way to say it, but in across different collections and collectible genres, that's the word I was looking for. Do you ever buy collections? And if so, how do you determine if a collection is good? How do you determine if it's valuable? I'm curious on that because we do the same thing with cards. I just want to see how you do it with coins.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's, I'll give a little backstory. So
Sure.
At the shop, the coin shop that I worked at was mainly a buying location, and the sales are all being done online. And the location itself is great for people to come in with their collections, sell to a shop, and then they can pay obviously less than what they're going to sell them for, and then direct them to the right network of people. Now, I think I personally do buy collections, but I'm pretty discerning about how I go about it because I want to make sure that I can make money and make it enough where it's a good investment on my time, because it is taking away from me working on the channel. So I really try to do well and do right by the people that I'm buying the collections from. So it can often be challenging because, my operating costs are way less than brick and mortar shops, and I have a lot of good relationships, so I can pay pretty strongly for material. But at the same time, if it's like $900 worth of material, it'll take me 10 hours to, or normally really there's a lot of hidden time costs. So maybe it's 5 hours coordinating to meet the person. And then by the time I pack it up and sell it in individual lots, it's another like 12 hours. So, can I pay, if I pay 600 for it, which, maybe would be a reasonable amount to pay, if it's like $12 an hour. So, I mean, that's fine, but I have a finite amount of time that I can focus on collecting. So a lot of coin dealers really will rip people off. And since I am pretty focused on not ripping people off, I will try to do higher volume things or direct somebody to the right person to purchase them. Now, when I go through, often what I'll do is I can take a really quick look at things, and I've seen a lot of collections and a lot of coins. So, and plus I'll have a laptop out and explain to people, like, here's how I'm going to help, go through it, because often I go through friends. I don't really set up in public to sort of buy from the public. I'll go through just people that I know. I can sort of say, well, I'll pay for all of these. I know exactly who I can sell them to, and I'll basically have them sold the minute I buy them, just to save myself some time and take a small cut, and then I'm outright. Or I'll say, like, I'll take a certain commission. I'm going to do a fair amount of work getting it graded, shopping it around, selling it, and we'll settle up after we're done. So there's a lot of different ways that I can do it, but I was buying a lot, like maybe 3 months ago and before, but recently I've really shifted back towards focusing on YouTube content and content in general.
That's interesting, because we do the same thing with our collecting. We're buying our collections and whatnot. But you said something which actually is something that is quite important to me. So you value your time, right? So you put a denomination or an increment amount of what your time is worth. So there is a very interesting theory, and it's escaping me, and all the names are escaping me today for some reason. Where this gentleman was like, if you want to do it, you have to make it worth your time. So what are you worth per hour? Would you still do it if this was worth this much an hour? And then it's how you value your time, of what your effort and what you're doing. So I actually apply that to something that I'm like, I'm just not going to do this. One of the things, you're going to laugh, is waiting in lines. If I have to wait in line and it's like an hour, I'm like, would I spend $150 on this item and wait in a line? No, then I would leave. Right?
Yeah.
But the answer is no. If it's tickets to a Leafs game and they're playing the Oilers, and I would say McDavid, yeah, I would pay $1,000 for that ticket. Okay, I'm going to stay in this line, right? So it's applying that thinking, and you have to do the same when you're buying collections. And I tell people this all the time: what is your time worth? Because you buy a collection and to take you 6 years to sell, right? Is it worth it? So there a lot of newbies, new people in the game forget that. Right, so you have to be mindful of it. So interesting that you went there, and interesting because of your age and your thought of it. So either I was a really dumb 17-year-old, I probably was, but nowhere near as articulate as you.
I appreciate it. No, I mean, yeah, I think it's important to think through, and it's the only difference maybe is that it can be fun. Like if you're not doing it professionally and it's like a side hobby where you're working with cards or coins. Like at this point, I've sort of shifted from doing YouTube solely for fun, where I have a business perspective. Same thing with coins. So certainly for people who are like loving cards or coins and they want to learn more, you learn so much by doing it. So there's a lot more intangibles, but once you have a feel, you can sort of figure out when maybe you're thinking a little more economically about your time. But anyways,
sorry, Kent, I'll let you take over.
Sure. So one of the aspects of coin and coin collecting is that you can actually find error coins, as you mentioned earlier. So one of the most famous iconic valuable US error coins is the famous 37D Buffalo nickel that only had 3 legs. And it's a highly sought after coin. Now for me, I'm always looking for error coins in my change. And I'll share a few of some of mine that I've found in my change in a minute. What's the attraction of error coins with collectors, Christian? And there's certain kinds of errors that command more value than others. Is that right?
Totally. So there's the difference. I think I was making a video recently. Somebody paid like $26,000 for a dime that had 2 reverses stamped on it, and it circulated a little bit. But it was sort of the common torch, the back of the Roosevelt dime. And that was, 2 reverse dies were used to strike that, which is super unheard of. But there's also a lot of errors that people, a coin that's struck off center, it doesn't quite fit between the dies as they strike. It's out of the collar. And, people maybe are paying $10, but if it's like a Morgan silver dollar, which a common date might be like a $30 coin right now, these were made 1878 to 1921. There was a lot of quality control on those. And so, off center coin there might be hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on the specific example. So I don't know, people, the mints take themselves very seriously. So they're a lot of quality control goes into the the employees are not thinking about the value of the coins that they're making. They have to sort of view it like mercenaries. They're just making coins to be used for their monetary function. Now, it's sort of interesting. A lot of the mint, there's a lot of different theories about how people would do it, whether they were sneaking them out in
Right.
certain, like the trash, like literally they would be throwing out all of their errors, because there is a difference between the errors and the varieties, but they're throwing out all the errors like a bag, and then they have at the dump, then somebody knows to go through it and get all the errors. It's been a lot tougher in modern years, but I'm talking about as recently as like 2000. There's some crazy errors. There's some obvious, there's no way that without active mint employee making an error that this would have occurred. But it's just like a way for people to have tap into a different side of the history of monetary production. That's how I kind of view it. They're inherently rare.
So let me share with you one of the ones that I found in my change, which I love and I still have. Give me 1 second here. So this is the Oklahoma State Quarter, and it's full of die chips and accumulations. Like the R is filled in, the N is all mashed together with chips and die chips. The D is filled in God. Even the R is all filled in. The U is filled in. So that is it. So sorry, is this the obverse or the reverse? I always get this mixed up.
Yeah, obverse, the front of the coin.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so
it's
this is the obverse. Yeah, and then if you flip it, I'm scrolling on the wrong thing. So now if you look on the back, the 2008, the first part of the 8, the upper circle is filled in, and there's a huge die chip on the bird's, I guess, neck or wing there, right there.
yeah. It's I mean, it's so cool how there can be these, you can see the evolution of literally how the coins were processed. I've been working doing some videos like the hour that I spent before talking to you today about these Morgan dollars and peace dollars. They have VAMs. It's like I think it's Van Allen and Malice or something like that, but they basically categorized a really detailed how the Morgan dollars were produced, because it was large coins, high reliefs, and not somewhat primitive striking. Now, these weren't like super obvious mistakes. I was saying that they're expensive before. Often these are really minute, but you can see like a progression of the coin had a little bit of a problem, like there was a die chip, and then you see all the same characteristics on the coin, but then all of a sudden there's polish lines where that die chip occurred, and the die has been repaired. But you can, and so these Van Allen and Malice and other people have made a really extensive history, because it's sort of, you're able to do it on the Morgan dollars, whereas with the massive quantities of the current coins you can't do it. But it's just fascinating how you can trace, like, you could find some other coins probably with slightly less die chips. If you had every Oklahoma quarter, it's like it's so cool how that the errors tell a story about the coins in a really unique way.
I couldn't agree more. So this is another one that I found in my chain. So it's a 1940 Canadian penny, but it has a serious planchet flaw. And there's even a chunk of the planchet that's out. So when they stamp the C, it's actually sunken into the divot of that planchet that got chopped out or whatever. I was fascinated by this error.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure, and I still have things to learn about it, but lamination error, there can be sort of impurities when they strike it. So sometimes that will present itself after it gets struck. Sometimes the lamination is before, but it's a really cool error that, you can conceivably find some lamination errors out there. And just, again, a close eye, a sharp eye can pick out some really fun things on coins.
So let me share this other one. So this is an interesting one. So this is the I think came out in 2008. So it's one of the more colored quarters in Canada. So it's celebrating the men's Olympics. I think they won that year. I think 2008 was it? So they're celebrating with colored and non-colored versions. So this is a colored version of the 2000. Actually, there's a variation of this one. So there's an incuse 2 and then a raised 2. I have the raised 2 colored, which apparently is more rare than the incuse 2 colored.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, how much does it go for?
You said, "Oh, nice, oh, nice,
oh, nice." Sorry. So yeah, that's one variation, but I also got a different variation of that, and I'll show you right now. Whoops, I keep scrolling the wrong thing. So this is also came out of my change, but you can see the color didn't adhere to the maple leaf. It ran all the way down and dried up on the skates
Whoa,
and into the lettering. So I keep calling my bloody skate quarter.
that's so cool. That's and it just shows how much is out there. I wasn't aware, I was vaguely aware that Canada had some colored quarters, but I had no idea, of this sort of error. There's so many cool things that are going on with our coins. I mean, I'm learning too. Like this is sweet.
I'll show
So,
you one. I can show you one just to give you an example. So some of our coins, I don't know if it'll show up, but we have.
oh yeah, that's a colored, the very colored
And
variation.
there we
Of
go. It came through. See, there's a color. So we have coins with color on it.
Yeah.
So there's two types. There's a non-color and a color of that one.
And there, I have more. Sorry, this probably is music to your ears. So can't always. So at the local expo, so we set up, and people pay me in change for some of the cheap cards. So I keep a bin. It's like I don't have it anymore because I haven't done a show in a while because of COVID. But there's a bin about yay high. And Kent will go through it and be like, you need to keep this. You need to keep this. You need to keep this. So this bin is a bin of all coins that Kent has told me to keep. In here is something the Stanley Cup Quarter, which is hard to find. So for those of you who collect hockey cards, so the Stanley Cup Quarter is a cool one. Anyways, I couldn't show it. I was having trouble focusing. That was the first coin to focus. But anyways, I just wanted to quickly show you color.
No, it's I think the US Mint has not done as good of a job making really cool rarities sort of feeding into the market. They sort of do it by selling directly to people. They did a few issues where they had W Mint quarters that were mixed in with the regular ones. Those 2019 and 2020, and those trade, I don't know, $5 to $10. And if you have one in really good condition at the top pop, like graded by PCGS, you can get several hundred. But anyways, I think like Britain has a really, really cool system with that, and so does Canada, where
So this
cool.
this is a $2 circulation coin that came out last year. So there's a colored and a non-colored version. I managed to find a colored version in my change.
Whoa. That's so artistic, and I'm not familiar with the specific history it would be referencing, or the artistic design, or what type of person that is.
It's
But I mean,
Bill Reed, and he's an indigenous artist, and I believe this is a depiction of a grizzly bear, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if Name's watching or not still, but maybe Name can let me know. But I believe it's a depiction of a grizzly bear.
I mean, the circulating commemoratives are so cool, and we've had that a little bit with our quarters, but there's not too much rarity there. Where introducing a little bit of that, sort of spurs the collecting market, but also people can can be a little more attracted to understanding what their money is.
I'm going to try and show one quarter. This is completely off topic, but I don't really care.
No, go ahead.
So this is the Stanley Cup Quarter.
Yes.
See, there you go. So there's a Stanley Cup Quarter. So anytime I see these, I keep them.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
I'll
awesome.
give you an example, and then here's a cool one. And you talk about art. I find this fascinating. Like, it's unbelievable how they can do it. So all of our collectibles, the other synergy and all the collectibles, there's an art to it, right? And painting, there's sketching, there's card making, and then look at the detail on this one.
Yeah, it's almost like it's etched in there.
Yeah. I can see the etching. I can't see the detail super well, but it's the modern or the modern etching, or I think they're using laser a little bit more in the process.
It's crazy. Like, I'm looking like, how do you put that much information on that coin?
Yeah.
Mind you, there is a whole TEDx talk about a guy who does paintings on a pinhead. But anyway, that's a different topic for a different day.
I don't know about you, Christian, but I find that when you have a lot of detail like that, there's easier chances for errors, no?
Yeah, I would think so. There are a lot of minor errors. Even though the Mint has been controlling the process really well, you can find a lot of like small die chips. Often these errors are less valuable, just because there are so many of them, and they're relatively minor. But like on Lincoln pennies in the 2000s, there's so many double die reverses that are just in like the columns in the Lincoln Memorial, as well as around Lincoln, like the tiny little imprint of Lincoln sitting in the memorial. They're really worth, like, it's probably tough to find buyers at 50 cents for most of them because there's just so many of them out there. But it's a cool thing to find, and there are these errors that crop up, and then every once in a while a big die break, and there's tons of CUD errors, which is sort of, those are a lot more, it's like large die chips or die breaks. It certainly comes up. So you're totally right in that statement.
So we know that the mint makes just, regular circulation coins for consumers to use, and then they make proof-like coins and special strike coins. For those of us that are not familiar with the different types, what do they mean in terms of collectability, and is one better than the other?
Yeah, so proof coins, so business strike coins are coins that are issued to be circulated. Now, sometimes they're NIFCs not intended for circulation. They'll use a business strike, but basically there's nothing abnormal about the strike that's being used.
Okay.
There's some coins that are technically like special strikes, or they're specimen coins. They're like, it's a non-business strike coin that's not going to be a proof coin. And proof coins have varied in terms of what the real definition of a proof is, dating back. There's a lot of proof coins that wouldn't look like today's proof coins, but often they're going to be minted using special polishing and striking techniques, and they're going to have a really mirrory surface. And there'll be cameos and deep cameos where there's a clear contrast between, they'll use some frosty elements, and then the fields will be really reflective. Is one better than the other? I'm not a huge fan of proof coins. I mean, a 2021 penny that's proof is going to be worth way more than, I don't know if it's billions or hundreds of millions that are being made for circulation, but the proofs are more collectible because they're not intended ever. The proofs are never made and then just thrown into circulation. There's always, it's starting from a position of being collectible.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's I think one warning, often the mint the proof coins are being sold directly by the mint to collectors or people
Right.
who are sell to collectors. I think that, we see sometimes with the amount of sort of speculation and hype and flipping that exists in collectibles as a whole right now, sometimes people can make money by getting in on that limited order, before the bots clear the mint out of their supply. But I think that that's not genuine rarity. And this is a big thing that I tell collectors. You can spend $300 on a set that's technically a limited mintage that was produced in 2020, or you could find a really nice historical coin from the mid 1800s.
Right.
That's rare because people use them, and this one's in much better preserved condition, or it still exists and is really worn, but it's so rare that it commands $300. I think that there is a difference there. Same thing I would say, and I don't really know in most cards, say, with Pokemon, the modern, and I think we might talk about this later, but I think part of what I was talking about before with buying good things is buying things that have genuine rarity, that rarity has developed organically, as opposed to being like a one of, with cards there can be like one of ones or one of 20s, like, and maybe that's a little bit of a different situation because cards are so much more modern. But like the coins, the one of 15,000s, maybe there's some value, but I think that it's already, the boat has passed in terms of there's enough people holding on to these knowing that they're rare, as opposed to the ones that were one of 10,000s, like in the early 1900s. Most of them are lost by now, and people didn't really realize that you could collect them that well.
It's the same, like the vintage versus modern debate, Kent. Same idea, right? Like, do you get Zion Williamson's PSA 10, or should you try and find a really crappy grade mantle and keep that in your collection, right? There's a beauty to either scenario.
Yeah. I was just going to say that Christian sounds like a well-seasoned veteran versus a university student.
I know. I have to say, I'm watching my tone and how I am carrying myself after talking to you, Chris. I'm just kidding. Just want to make sure I'm sounding as intelligent as you. Kent, for the next question, I would prefer you to ask it because you have something you want to show. So,
sure.
Why don't you do that one, and I will jump to the question after that.
Yeah, sounds good. So we're just going to briefly touch upon this particular term, which is called improperly annealed planchet, that error specialists reference on coins. So basically, it's a coin that is heated too much so that the impurities in the planchets rise to the surface so that the coins look sintered. Now, one of the more sought after one of these errors is known as the Black Beauty Jefferson nickel. Now, I have a 64, and I don't know if it's a Black Beauty or not, but I'll show it to the screen. I'll share it on the screen here in a second. So, Christian, what are your thoughts of Black Beauties? And I'll also show a Mississippi State Quarter that I think is improperly annealed planchet as well. So I'll just flash that for everybody to see, so they can get an idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is just a testament to the fact that how many cool errors are out there. Now, I'll say that I'm not the most familiar with improperly annealed planchets. Had heard the term certainly Black Beauty in the past. I haven't held one in hand to examine because there can be a lot of other discoloration factors. I think the information and I work hard on really understanding them, and sometimes I don't even fully, or certainly in videos in the past where I haven't explained them the best, and then people can be misled, or it's like, well, my coin also has this discoloration, it must be improperly annealed. Sometimes that is the case. I think the 64 probably is going to be better just because there's a known improperly annealed one. But I mean, you can see that the other day I was working, or not the other day, it was like 2 years ago, there were some improperly annealed state quarters that came in the coin shop. So
this one's hard to tell.
And certainly, there's some experimental washes that are worth thousands of dollars on, I think some, or maybe it's tens. There's other experimental rinses or things that can add a lot of value to coins, and they look slightly different, but that to somebody who's not like a full-time error authenticator, you could also have had the same post mint, like outside of the mint experience, causing it to look that way. So it's challenging for me to ID through the camera,
for sure.
But they definitely exist out there, and for people to understand. And often, somebody thinks they have something and then they do a lot of research and they end up not having it, but they come away with a real appreciation for error coins. So it's just, I think it's great for people, doing the research, understanding the funny looking stuff that comes through their pocket change. More often than not on the error side, it's probably not going to be what they think it is. But then there's a lot of cases of people finding, the best example, I think right now in modern years, 1976, there was some proof coins. They were all minted at San Francisco, and there were like one or two that got out with no mint mark, no S mint denoted to say it was from San Francisco. And somebody found one at like a dollar store, or like a store, and they just picked it up, and that coin sold for like 450,000. There's been private offers in the seven figure range. So I mean, this is really it exists that you can find some stuff. Another example, 2000, there's some Mule coins. The obverse of the coin is a Washington State Quarter. The back of the coin is a Sacagawea reverse dollar, and the coin is minted on Sacagawea planchets. So it's like gold US $1 coins. And there's been like 17 of them found, slow trickle. Most of them were found nearer to like 2000, but occasionally every multiple years at this point, one will surface, and they're well into the 10,000 and up range. So they mint errors, they exist, and they're just fun to learn about. And what I've done is now bought some because I've only found a very limited number of not super valuable mint errors. They're really fun to collect.
So we're at the hour mark. Are you cool to still keep going? We have a few questions, quite a few questions still, but I want to make sure you're okay.
Sure. Yeah. I'll be a little more brief, but yeah, let's get.
Oh, you don't have to be. You don't.
Yeah.
Have to
No.
be.
Yeah.
This has been an enjoyable conversation. Whether people are here or not, I'm enjoying it. So I don't mind you being verbose. I'm verbose too, but we're talking about things we're passionate about, so it doesn't matter.
Cool.
So thank you, Kent, for taking over that question. So when it comes over to coin and collecting, we need to talk to you about whether or not you should or should not clean coins. What do you recommend, and why we shouldn't do it, or should we do it?
I'm going to keep this one simple, both time-wise. I would say do not clean your coins. It's not a good idea. Any artificial interaction with the coin, if there's traces of that, the value is massively decreased. It's considered a damaged coin. Some really advanced people know how to clean their coins and make it look like they didn't clean their coin. Or there's that's like another full hour topic to get into what's market acceptable and what's not.
Right.
But don't clean your coins. It's not a good idea.
So for the folks out there, if you see fingerprints or anything like gum or goo, don't clean it, right?
Yeah, I would say don't. I mean, maybe the exception would be like ancient coins, or if you just found something metal detecting and there's like
Oh,
literal
right, of course,
dirt or
yes.
something like that. Like
Right.
then you have to take it off. But a little fingerprint. I'm not going to talk about dipping coins. I would say for now, don't clean your coins. It's the value of having a unmessed with coin that has a fingerprint is far exceeding the value of that coin when it's apparent that you tried to remove it and it might be there or it might not be there, but it's clear that it's a cleaned coin. It's not gonna get a. It's like if with cards from 1 to 10, if they said like I don't know, near mint details, and they wouldn't give it a number, and that details grade was like for really collectible stuff like a tenth of the value of the regular.
This is good to know. That's really good to know.
Interesting thing here. So there's a synergy. Now that we've had a few shows, and we had shows with the stamp collector yourself, the common theme is don't clean, right? Don't clean. Keep the preserve it as it is. So the difference is with high end art, like multi-million dollar painting, it's okay to restore, but it's not okay to restore for collectibles such as coins, stamps, movie posters, whatever it may have you, right? And just so everyone's aware, what dipping means, it's a chemical process where they replate based on an alloy. So basically, a lot of people do this with wedding rings. They get scratched up. They'll put them and they'll dip them to have them replated, so they look brand new, and they scuff it, and they buff it out to make it look new. It looks like an awful process. I would never want to try it. So those are good answers, and I like to hear that synergy that don't mess with what's already there. So the one thing is that with sports, there's a feeling of FOMO. Sorry, sports card collecting. There's a feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out. So FOMO. Can you tell us? Does anyone have that issue? You ever come across people with that issue with coin collecting? And how would you tell a coin collector to avoid the pratfalls of, got a hoard and fear and FOMO?
Yeah, I think I had a conversation about FOMO, an hour before we spoke. The time to have FOMO is when you are trying to buy a coin that's worth millions of dollars and it's not going to come back for auction for 50 years. That's when you should have FOMO, and you could spend, whatever your non-needed, your discretionary spending is. That's when you can have FOMO. But outside of that, not being attached to any one coin in particular, probably a smart move. I think that there's less new releases that are super exciting coming out from the mint. It's more those established real rarities that exist. I think often if you look at sort of the inflated prices that people are paying for supposedly like rare or low limited release stuff right from the mint, oftentimes they're crashing soon after, just because there's often not a ton of real organic demand for these issues as there might be in cards. I think that is a difference between, but at the same time, I also think people shouldn't be. I don't tell people to invest. I think you can invest in precious metals. I think it's a little bit of a different situation when it comes to focusing on coins. I don't spend any money on coins. Well, I mean, it would be a bummer if my collection was worth zero tomorrow. But I think if you can afford to lose everything you put into coins, that's going to make it a much more enjoyable hobby. Often, maybe you can stay in the market longer and own them, and they'll increase in value. But also, not sweating about how your portfolio.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's mostly what I've got. But I think it's maybe less bad in coins, or if people are having it, they should realize that there's not a huge need to have it. To be caught up in buying coins that are really challenging.
Yeah.
To have that fear of missing out on new mint releases. It's different when it's a rarity that. Yeah. Sometimes it's not millions, but it's a really specific variety. And if you're collecting varieties, one of these is going to appear every 5 years because there's like 3 or 4 that have been found. It's not necessarily that rare, but there's low interest and low small amount of people finding it. Then maybe you have to buy, but that's probably too advanced or just niche. Really, it's easy to understand, but very niche and not applicable in too many instances.
No, that makes sense. It makes sense. I just the other thing is funny is with either of our collections is you can go deep, and when you go deep, some people get lost real quick. And I've noticed like I've had conversations with people, and then I get all excited, and I'm like blah 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 blah, and they're like, I just like it because it's my favorite player, and
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it's shiny. Anyway, and they move on. And you're like, okay, won't be doing that again. We gotta hold our passion inside. Anyway, go ahead, Ken.
This is a kind of a fun question. So, as a numismatist, is there anything that makes you cringe when you see people treating coins rather casually on a tournament?
Yeah. I mean, I think it can be tough. I think the cleaning is the worst. When somebody brings in a collection, I dealt with a collection that I did broker myself. It was valuable, but there are a lot of coins in there that were worth $300. $30 of metal, but $300 of numismatic value. If they had been if they were not heavily polished, or one little polish means it's done for these coins,
Right.
but those coins could have been worth like 3,000 a piece. I mean, I would have been dealing with a huge collection. So, I mean, and I don't know if they bought them cleaned or if they cleaned them up themselves. Sometimes you literally have the person saying, "I cleaned them up to make them shiny for you," but that's the sort of magnitude that. So I cringe when I see that. It's yeah. We can go back to the not cleaning coins. Yeah,
Like you almost want a collector that doesn't have OCD for cleaning.
exactly.
Those are the ones that there are guys that we know out there that are OCD, and you're like, holy crap, man, I can't deal with this. I gotta look away. I just
Exactly.
can't. They're holding a trading card, and I see them open up a brand new packet, and they're like ripping the little tail end, and I'm like, don't touch that. Don't touch that.
Yeah, all sixes from the grading companies when they get that little bend. So
So speaking of coins, and this is kind of similar to trading cards and anything that's highly collectible. Have you ever encountered any counterfeit coins or altered coins within the coin collecting hobby? And are they hard to detect, like it is with like trading cards, for example?
yeah, a fair amount of them in that collection where the person had a lot of $300 coins that were cleaned. There's also a 1909 SVDB penny, which is like a lot of people, if you've collected coins, that's one of the traditionally in the past 50 years, like one of the really cool, attainable but valuable coins to own. And I sent it in from the collection, and it was fake. It was somebody had added a mint mark to it. I didn't.
Added the mint mark to it. Wow.
They added it. Exactly. It escaped me, but it was okay because I said I actually am not totally confident on this coin. I wasn't saying we're not going to have it at all, but I said, look, you just eat the grading fees, and then I'll go through it and take a commission after we're done with it. And if I get it, I'm going to get the commission. If it's fake, you're out the grading costs. And it worked well because I didn't buy it up front for a little under $1,000. It was a nice looking coin. And yeah, so that's a good example of just what we're talking about. And I probably, if I had looked really closely there, I think that there's like 4 known mint marks for the SVDB. I probably should have done my added time. I'm not sure if I would have caught it necessarily, because there's like slightly different places where the mint marks were punched in separately from the production of the die at that point in 1909. So the answer is yeah, they're definitely there. Some of them are pretty obvious. Sometimes it's like, yeah, there's no way. These are all like pewter cast fakes from Asia. That's normally Russia and China are 2 major counterfeiting locations, and so those will be some of the lower quality. Sometimes people come up with counterfeit slabs. I did a video on that, like an interview similar to this format about a month or 2 months ago. They'll fake the PCGS, or similar to like PSA if somebody was faking PSA slabs, which I know that they do. There's all sorts of scams people try to run.
So this is interesting. So I had shown Amit this a couple of days ago. So there's an article from a local coin collector up here in Canada who discovered that there's fake toonies,
Wow.
counterfeit toonies, and it's hard for me to show. But if you look at his right paw, I believe this is a counterfeit that I found in my change. So if you look at his left paw, all four toes are all rather together. But his right paw, it looks like two toes broken apart from the main leg. And
Huh.
that's apparently how you can tell the counterfeits.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so it looks like a legit toonie, but it's actually more than likely counterfeit. I need somebody to verify that for me. But I found two of them. So that there was a 1996, and there's also they had counterfeited 5 different years apparently.
I mean,
So,
I would totally accept that, and I think a lot of there's some arguments to have $1 and $2 coins. Even five franc is like, and francs are more the exchange rate. Francs are worth more than dollars in Switzerland. Like
right.
these coins are heavily. I think the £1 coin, there was like something 1 in 33 of them or something like that were counterfeit at one point, and they've changed the design. But it could be quite profitable to run it on these mid-denomination coins. I know I have
Exactly.
a few,
Is
there's
this,
that.
yeah.
Go.
Is this 2006 that I'm showing right now? I knew something was not right about it because it's the is this the reverse? I guess this is the reverse or the obverse.
I'm
With
not sure how
fake.
Canada does it
Yeah,
exactly.
but it's actually on a 15-degree tilt.
Mm,
It's
interesting.
not
Well,
actually
I'll
it's not
update
actually
that.
centered properly on the
Huh.
back.
It's
Yeah.
weird. That can be a rare, an error coin, rotated dies, in US, but it's also a telltale sign. Like the Henning nickels, they're worth like $100 or more. Where this guy was faking them in the 1940s, or 1950s, I think, and they're really well done. But we had war nickels, 35% silver in World War II, and they had these large mint marks above Monticello on the back, and he faked a date 1944 where there should have been the large nickel or the large mint mark, and he forgot to put that large mint mark on there, so he was able to get caught. And there was another thing where the R has a little bit of a gouge in it in the E pluribus unum, really small, but you can find that gouge on like I think it's 1947, 1954. There's like a few other ones that are much rarer because they were so good and they passed as fakes. But anyways, it's like there's worlds and there's worlds that like, yeah, bust halves from the early 1800s. There's collectors who just collect the contemporary counterfeits that were made in like the late 1800s. It's crazy how many deaths there are.
You're saying that coin that Kent has is collectible, even though it's a fake?
I would imagine that people pay. I mean, it depends how many there were made, but I would think if they're good enough to pass as fakes, and you could confidently go and spend them for $2 and nobody would think twice, there's probably a little bit of extra value, depending on how much.
Yeah, it's interesting because that collector in Canada, he's actually reported these fakes to the Royal Canadian Mint about it.
Wow, it's I mean, I don't know what they are going for. I'm not familiar, and it might be different because it's recent, but certainly the ones from the 50s, they were selling for like 30, $40 maybe a few years ago. Now they're well into the hundreds. It's people, it's a testament to coin history. And when they're genuinely rare, if the same guy could show up tomorrow with 5,000 fake toonies or loonies, or I always forget the terminology. I think the value.
You got it right.
Yeah. So that's where the difference, because they are now genuinely rare. And I would imagine, he's not going to, whoever it is, isn't going to say, "Hey, look what I did." Like, come put me in jail for 10 years.
Yeah. Hi, I'm doing something illegal. I mean, the other funny part is our money. It's actually because the dollar coin is a loonie because there's a loon on it, and then because the toonie came out, they just made a double loonie, so it's a toonie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a unique nickname from that perspective. But cool. I am surprised that even something like that is considered valuable. I wasn't aware of that. With we're talking strictly coins, but things there's probably a whole different ballgame when it comes to notes. But that's really interesting. I have to look at I give all my change to Kent. Kent literally sits there for hours going through coin after coin. I just put it in a bag, and I said this box is probably 4 shows worth of coins.
I think it was like one of the shows, and somebody paid me in change, and Amit's like looking at me like, "What are you doing? Did you put it in your pocket?" I'm like, "No, I'm looking for things."
Because he's making a deal. he's making a deal, and Kent. Now I know what Kent's thinking. He's like, "Wow, if I can find a coin in here, that makes my deal even better."
That's funny.
So this is a fascinating conversation. So this is I want to keep going with this. So trying to see where we are with the questions. We talked about counterfeit coins. Oh, sorry, Kent, do you have the next one?
No, go ahead. Take it to me.
So it's gonna be weird. This is you talking about having a conversation with a coin dealer. But anyways,
It's okay.
so Kent, I'll talk about Kent in the third person. So Kent had a conversation with a coin dealer that told him not to buy coins that have mint mistakes. Sorry, the coins
the
that
mint
mint
make.
See, this is why it doesn't make sense for me to ask the question. So why don't you just take it?
Fine. I'll take it over. So there's a word for these types of coins, and it escapes me right now. But specifically, they're the ones that are like gimmicky. They're made as collectibles from the mint, and they can be shaped like an egg or colored. Have a particular type of strike to it. So he was saying there isn't much of an ROI on those. Would you agree with that assessment? And what's your take on the gimmicky coins that the mints make? Are they actually collectible, and are they worth anything?
I mean, I think maybe it's commemorative coins. I mean, and that's
probably commemorative. Yeah, it's probably there.
There was 1892, and there's been some other ones to 1954. I want to say we had the classic commemorative silver $50. People thought that they were sort of stupid in most cases back then, and a lot of them ended up in circulation. That's not true for all of them, but anyways, those are now super collectible. I think that people know that those did not know how collectible that those would be in most cases down the line, and so they sort of had that authentic rarity. Then in 1982, the mint starts doing a ton more commemorative things, and same thing with buying proof sets from the mint. I'm not a huge fan of buying stuff from the mint for investment or flipping purposes. I think certainly in cases they do really well. Like there's a few, but I actually don't think that's true. Maybe a very select few will have appreciation. They're not, I just find it tough to say when they're being marketed as collectible from the start that they exist. It's tough for that authentic rarity to creep in over time.
Because I guess what he was trying to tell me that if I had walked up to him with all these commemorative sets, he was basically saying that you might think that they're worth a lot because there was a mintage of like maybe 10,000, 5,000 or whatever print run. And he said, if you walked up to me, I would just give you the straight melt value for it. That's what he said.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny. And then like you feel bad because, there's the commemoratives, which this often happens, and they're treated as melt or as face value. If it's just like a business strike that's worth like $1.50, then it's a $50. The coin shop can't make money paying anything more than 50 cents really, or so on those small little margins. But then you also get into at least they're like collectible from the mint when you get those marketers that come in and sell $1 coins in fancy packaging, but it's not packaging. Like it's even worse. So yeah, that's why I say buy good coins, buy those really rare, any rare collectibles. And I know that there's a big modern versus vintage in like Pokemon, which I like. There's a debate there, but I'm a vintage. I'm firmly on the vintage side with most of this stuff.
It's actually interesting because there are people I know personally that wait for. So all of our old commemorative coins are sold at the local post office as well as the mint. They wait for them to go on sale, and they go buy them and melt them down. They just wait for the sale. They're like, okay, and they'll buy a crap ton of it, clean all the local shops, and then melt it all down and resell it. It's a lot of work, and I'm sure it's not cheap to melt down coins, but I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. In Canada, though, you have to have I can't remember what it's. You have to have the right to melt coins or precious metals. You just can't, like you and I just can't go and melt stuff and just try and resell it.
Oh, it's not like those TikTok videos where they're just pouring liquid metal into cast iron, whatever it is. So that's interesting on that level, and there are people who know how to do that. So I want to get into another topic. I'm not familiar with this, so you'll definitely have to explain it to me. It's like, what does it mean by stacking silver and stacking gold coins? What does that mean?
Yeah. I think the physical idea would be like if you just like have silver and you're stacking the coins on top of each other, like it's a literal stack of silver. And then really what that means, a silver stacker, like I have some content focused on silver stacking, gold stacking. Often the basics are like clearing up the misconceptions. It's mostly people who think that gold or silver for whatever reason are a good investment. They're going to be worth more often in dollar terms in the future than they are today. And so really gold or silver stacking is just sort of the process of accumulating that. And often really the stacking is going to be physical because you can buy these, in commodity, in like ETFs or, in stock form, in online form. But a lot of people enjoy the physical aspect. Maybe they're a little bit conspiracy minded, or maybe they like the ability to pass it, through generations, or maybe they like the just seeing it in their hand for whatever reason. A lot of people prefer the physical, and so it's really just a term described to be stacking or taking physical possession of for investment purposes in
So
gold.
it's kind of like stacking poker chips in a way.
It is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's also like I find it funny because I play a game with my son and he likes having a lot of the little coin because they're higher than the bigger coins. And I'm like, do you realize that my coins are worth more than yours? I don't care. They just look better. So it's probably the same idea. So talking about earlier, we talked about graded coins and raw coins. It sounds like, and if I'm not mistaken, you would prefer to deal with raw coins and then get them graded, or versus buying graded and trying to make margin on those sales.
So very, very good question. And
Oh.
hopefully I can give some context. So I think that there's like 50 or like maybe 1,000 even hours we could spend getting into every little detail on graded versus raw. I think grading is one really good thing for the coin. There's been a lot of people who've lost money due to grading. And grading gets used often on modern coins as a way of marketing it as looking investable when it's really just
That
plastic.
sounds familiar. Has a familiar sound to that.
Exactly. Yeah. As I'm sure maybe you can have in cards all the time, really. And we can draw parallels there. But it's grading also goes from 0 to 70 in coins, and maybe that would be. I think it would be challenging to have that sort of scale within cards, just because coins were used often. But the difference, there's a lot of coins where you have something and 60 to 70 means it hasn't been circulated. You can have a coin that's worth like $500 in 65, and then 66 it jumps to like 5,000, and then 50,000 and 67, and it's a really small difference. So a lot of the people on the high end, and a lot of people get into it because it's flashy and it's cool, and most people lose money trying to do it. But if you have a really good eye, and there's a lot of nuances at the grading companies, people are literally crack out dealers. So they buy graded coins for 66 money, and then they put it in a 67 holder, and they do that 10 times a year, and that's their living. Now they've lost a lot on other coins where they miss. Maybe if you're a good crack out guy and you're hitting 30% of your coins, you're making these huge jumps on. That's a good place to be. But anyways, it's tricky. Man, there's so much to get into here. I think
Christian, when you're saying they crack it up, they can actually crack it up with actually damaging the case.
I mean, and there's stories of people. That's another cringe. People can crack out. And it's different with cards, but the metal and people are constantly destroying these plastic. I mean, there's people that I know. There's coins that have been, they made the coin as in like getting that upgrade after like 30, 40 times, and it's worth it sending it in for $50 a coin. And they haven't damaged it. So. So that's just one. So the idea of making money in graded coins and cracking them out certainly is a very big thing. A lot of people lose money doing it. It also helps because people who don't know a ton about coins, or who do know about coins, originally the purpose was you could buy coins without seeing them. So, we didn't have share photos. And back then the scale started at 60 and 65, then evolved to 60, 63, 65, 67. Now, you go 60 to 70 and you have plus grades. And you have stickering companies that can affirm a grade or not.
We have the same.
Yeah.
We have the same thing. And we have people that crack cards out and get to resub. PSA has actually come out and said that they're trying to So not just PSA. Someone else has come out and said they are going to fingerprint. So basically, do a sort of like assign some sort of identifier to the card they know has been resubmitted.
Like an invisible DNA or something.
Something like that. Some label. Well, no, they're using the fiber. I think they're examining the card itself. So the unique properties of the card to determine whether the same card came back. So that'll stop a lot of these crackers, like they crack out. But the problem in that is they'll probably. So what we have is people will get a card as a BGS 9.5, so Beckett grading system, and then they'll say, well, if this 9.5 can possibly be a PSA 10, I'll crack it out, send it to PSA, and then if that becomes a 10, they use other grading services as a way to figure out, is it worth the game the system? But the problem in our industry is you're paying $50 US dollars. Sorry, let me rephrase this. For PSA, you're paying a lot of money to sub cards, right? So think about it. If you're going to crack a card out, it better be worth a lot of money. You're going to pay $50 a shot to keep having it regraded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a mind-blowing kind of thought process.
I sort of like the existence of Krakow. So I don't know how good, because it's healthy to be able to make money in a hobby, and that like therefore reinforces it, and it's more investable to come in for people to think that they, I think there's a lot less, that people don't in coins are rarely looking. It's not like they have centering and edges and like the surface like you do with CGC, or SGC back at like these different non-PSA no subgrades. Maybe that's the difference. There's not quite that value because maybe it's less comparable, but like that 65 to 65 plus on a coin can be massive. Now, the problem sometimes coins, well, people will try to put coins in their coffin, which is they've submitted it so many times and they finally get that really high grade. It's never going to come out of that holder. So like you can have over time, because the company for coins, they do promise they'll give it a fresh look every time. Often they know that the toning on the coin makes it a known coin, and the goal is that they really, maybe it's helpful because they can get the feeds from having resubmissions. But I also think it's looking at grading is not an objective thing, but as a subjective, it's an art. It's like an honest appraisal of how it looks. Having that shift, I think, can be healthy, but there's a lot of nuances with grading, and I think there were there was huge backlog, just like there is with cards right now. I did a bulk submission and got them back like a month ago, like a year after I had submitted them to PSA. And there was the exact same problems in the late 80s, and people made tons of money and then got crushed when the backlogs opened up. So I'm curious to see how it plays out for cards, but there's a lot of inherent problems, but I think it helps it long term because having that like quantifiability is huge for people who are willing, like making people willing to spend the money. Once we get really good pop reports and good understandings of what the true pop reports on a lot of the cards that are still way in the backlog, that'll be helpful for people to have when you know all the information, then you can understand rarity.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of parallels, and the parallel here is PSA does coins and cards. So there is that. And there are also cards with coins. For example, Marvel, there's a Marvel product where they take the year the comic was produced and the coins that were produced in that same era and clip them together. So it's actually really neat. They're not worth anything, but don't worry. Sorry, let's go back to where are we, Kent? I keep losing our place.
I have a couple of questions and I'll throw it over to you, mate.
Sure.
So Christian, the usage of technology such as YouTube, Zoom, Instagram, live feeds has allowed you and us to bring our shows and the love of numismatics across geographical areas around the globe with with very little to no restrictions. Now, being able to bring hobby content to other collectors around the world, have you had other feedback from collectors from just outside the United States?
Certainly, yeah. I think a lot of different countries. I mean, when I look in the geography, sometimes there's most of my viewership is US, but like almost every country, at least one person from, if their internet isn't blocked in that country, somebody's looked at
Right.
it. I have a lot of people who I've got friends. I've hired people who have seen my videos and want to help out, who are in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Poland, Slovenia, and Germany, in addition to the US. So, I mean, those are literally people that I've paid to then help me out with content, or often the back end. But that's a very tangible example. There's tons of commenters saying, "Oh, hey, like there's a coin that I've seen." And that's my home country. It's awesome to be able to do that through the internet.
Excellent.
We got to find people to pay. I'm just kidding.
I mean, you want to run with these next questions? Because I think these are special for you.
So we're on to something that's near and dear to me, which is Pokemon. So Pokemon is something I got into about a year ago, and then my kids got right into it. So I got right into it, right? So I bought the I can't remember the name of the game, the Battle Academy box set. We play the games. They're extremely competitive, and they fight with me all the time, and they hate me because I have the Blastoise deck, and they hate the Blastoise deck. So I've fallen in love with it. But I want to talk about Pokemon from the fact, like, is it too late for people to get into Pokemon? One question: is it too late for people to get into Pokemon? Right, because of the boom right now. So I'll let you answer that first, and then I have a follow-up question to that.
So I would say definitely no. When I think back to the Christmas where I look back at what was I most excited about doing, I'm sure I destroyed, I lost my collection of some really good stuff when I was 6, and I would still think about it to this day, if I had those cards. But I think Pokemon's awesome because I really enjoy like the memories that I made around Pokemon, collecting with my cousins. Like when you're like 6 or 7, you still have that like literally the brain chemistry, that imaginative spark. Like, I'm hoping that maybe a Pokemon appears in real life. Like it was such like another example of something super fun and like really tough to view as anything bad. Like I remember with Yu-Gi-Oh cards, my parents wouldn't let me do it because there was some, there's a lot of pretty scary, maybe there are like literally, I think, demons. And so people have different religious proclivities. I think Pokemon is very clearly okay and within the bounds of me coming from a strong Christian family. My name says it, so it's not too much of a secret. Like we weren't worried about that, and it was just like such a cool thing to have, and like super, again, just like a nice thing to get into. So I love Pokemon. I think it's awesome. I think everybody should enjoy it. I obviously at this point have a little different, why am I enjoying Pokemon? It's mostly because I'm thinking back to that Christmas where I opened up and all these cards and made a huge stack of them on like the dining room counter. Like it's so most of it is nostalgia tied. I think with the markets, like getting into modern, I think the prices are so much higher than they were like a month or like a year or two ago. I had started buying them my freshman year of college because I had a friend named Sean who liked buying sneakers, and he was like, "Hey, like you should like buy some collectibles that you enjoy." And people hadn't really gotten into the, like PSA hadn't really been booming yet. And I remember I would slowly buy them, and then all of a sudden the shops I was buying them were totally cleared out, and I was like, "What just happened?" And so it's been tough to hit my original collecting goals. But anyways, I think that it's maybe if you're not spending money that you really care about, I think it's totally the right time to get into Pokemon.
So like I said, I'm knee deep into it. I've been buying it. I'm looking at investment cards as well. The funniest thing I have to tell you. So I want to play with my sons, but some of the good cards are really valuable. So I have this conundrum, and the other day, I said, "The heck with it." I gave one of my high-end cards to my son just to play with it. It was a Blastoise, I want to say V Max or GX. Anyway, I can't remember. It's a $50 to $60 card, and he was looking at it like, I really want to play because you can't evolve your characters unless you have that card, right? And even some of the base cards are shiny as hell, right? Like cards, and then they're also valuable. So I said, you know what? Let them make memories. I gave it to him, right? So I'm now looking at cards I want to buy. And I noticed something, and maybe you can enlighten me on here. And I've asked many people the exact same question. So in Pokemon, you have all these characters. They come up with new characters all the time. But the same characters that are collectible are two guys, Charizard and Pikachu. Everyone else is a distant third, and I don't understand it. I've gone through Pokemon pricing list. I've seen the ultra rares. There's an ultra rare card I looked up the other day of Drampa. I can't remember what set it's from, but it's an ultra rare. It's actually a really nice looking card. The Charizard, the exact same set, is worth 3 times this ultra rare, and the ultra rare looks amazing. And I'm like, what is it going to take for them to go to other cards in that same set?
Yeah, I mean, this is fun to think about because I don't think about the Pokemon too much, like outside of just really enjoying it. And I'll be tested here on how well I paid attention to like the anime, or I didn't really do the anime too much. I was more cards. Like there was a TV show. I didn't have much access to TV when I was really young. My parents didn't have it, and I think that was good. But I love the cards. But anyways, I think Pikachu was Ash, the original like protagonist in the Pokemon anime series. Normally, you'd get 3 starters, and that was one of Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle. Yeah, that's really bad that took me that long. But anyways, I think Ash ends up with a Pikachu, and the anime like revolves around him training his Pikachu, and it's like the protagonist's first Pokemon, and then is a very out of the ordinary thing that he doesn't get one of the Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and like that's been like the original Ash's Pokemon. Charmander, which was one of those 3 starters, was the fire one, and people kind of like the fire. I think Charmander. Type, I think it's 001, like in the Pokedex. So it's like the first Pokemon, and I don't know if Ash, the protagonist, ends up getting one, but it's one of the 3 starters plus Pikachu, and it's like the ostensibly coolest one. It's like super. It turns into this fire-breathing dragon, and is in the lore a ton. So I think that's where those 2 come from. But a lot of people like will pick a little, maybe it's Drampa. I don't even know what Drampa is because I probably stopped looking at the new ones. I think Black and White era was when I was like 11. I don't know.
That was a while ago.
So the point being, a lot of people like are still coming back into it. Like they now have money to spend on collectibles, and so often those Pikachus and the Charizards are like the most seen in the anime. You'll also see that. I would think like Blastoise is quite expensive. Like Lugia which was 2nd gen, or Mewtwo and Mew. Those cards are often in the same set. Those are much more valuable. It's like that nostalgic feel. So that would be my best explanation. Plus, they're pretty rare. Like first edition Charizards are quite rare. They've been there forever, and so I that's where I think it's like, what memories do people have it associated with the Pokemon?
So probably why like I've been picking up the Pikachus and the Charizards and then putting them on one side, right? Like graded copies. But selfishly, I like some of the other cards, so I want to go find a Drampa GX and just. I'm thinking I have to look up the card name again. I'm not 100% an expert on Pokemon. I'm getting there. I'm literally like 4 months old, right? Like my kids are into it. And my kids are the ones that actually tell me stuff. They're actually like, "Oh, look, this guy does this," and then I'm looking at the cards. I'm like, "This guy's hit points are terrible. Like, why does it work so much?" It's the guy, or I hate the card. I'm getting nerdy here, but I hate the cards where it's like, it's your turn to play, and it's like, you can draw a card. I can't attack. I just have to draw a card. Like, what's the point of this card? But this card's worth, like, you know what I mean? So, I'm enjoying it. I love it. I'll be sticking to the Charizard and Pikachus. I like the fact that your explanation makes sense, and that's what makes them blue chip. I guess the distant thirds are the Blastoise. I like the Blast. I like the water types. I will gravitate towards those. But I do like your answer. It's not too late because it's still a very popular sport or trading cards for kids. They still play it, and adults are playing it. And the Pokemon tournaments are insane. I watched a tournament with my son, nerded out hardcore. That was fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's so I like your explanation, and I think I'm going to keep going. And one of the angles I'm really diversifying my collection is definitely into Pokemon. So I'm hoping in 20, 30 years I'll pay for my kids' education. Anyway,
so Christian, We have a question for you from
Oh.
Name. So he says, "Do you have any sports cards or memorabilia?"
I think so. I enjoyed baseball card collecting when I was like in that 5, 6, 7. So I don't think I have anything super valuable. I think there's this one Cal Ripken Jr. card where there's like 3. It's a portrait. You may know it, but it's a
That's
rookie
the
card.
rookie card. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 3 faces on it, and I think I've got one of those from my. It might be signed. I don't know if I don't think it is, but I think that it was in my dad's collection, and now I have it. That's about all that I've got there. I was thinking up behind me here. Actually, yeah, I do have sports cards. So I'm gonna get this box down because you may not be aware of it. This is a really, really cool. These are very rare. They're not that collectible, but this is called MLB Showdown.
Yeah, I know this. Yes.
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast. It's the
Wizards of the
creator.
Coast. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this was a card game that they made from like 2000 to 2005. You could play. It's similar mechanics. It's like you're rolling a d20 to determine the outcome. There's also strategy cards. But the sealed stuff, it's very limited in terms of how many people play it. But I found these on eBay like 18 months ago, and I was like, I have to have them. So I bought the pennant run and some 2004. So they're technically sports, but they're less card. It's still like a trading card game. But anyways, that's the Wizards product that I own. I also have up there like some Magic cards and maybe one Pokemon booster box. But that's the sports that I do own. I'm still trying to complete. I always play like, I think I got it in a collection from my dad's friend he had a few MLB Showdown. I was like, hey, this is cool. Can actually make him play. What's your involvement? I'm curious. I've never really talked to anybody else who plays a meet with MLB Showdown.
So I haven't played it. I'm familiar with it because I've seen enough of those products. I've heard about it, but I don't have familiarity from a game playing perspective. But I recognize it right away.
Yeah.
It's just because I nerd out on. Well, Ken and I are both trading card collectors, right? We nerd out on that stuff a lot, right?
Especially the older stuff.
Yeah, some of the older vintage. I'm going to call them. Well, they're not quite vintage, but they're more older products. I enjoy. Right? They were cheaper. They were really hard to like. Some of the old packs, like cards stick together. I still open up old product all the time, just for fun, right? Because that's what I grew up collecting, right? And they're cheaper to buy. Like the modern day boxes are several hundreds of dollars per box, and like I said, not like coins. You can walk out with 25 cents worth of stuff after dropping 500 bones on a box, right? So there is that. So we've been speaking for almost 2 hours. So there's two more questions we have left. I wanna say first of all, this has been an amazing show. Just like the stamp show, I had a lot of fun, and Kent as well, I'm sure. But we got 2 more questions, and then I'll let you get your shut eye. So what advice would you give to those watching tonight as this episode gets replayed on YouTube to become a first-time coin collector? And I'm not going to say that word because I can't say it. The
Numismatist.
Numismatist. They want to become a numismatist.
Yeah, I think I would start by just getting you. Maybe it's with pocket change, or maybe it's some going to seeing if there's a local coin store and just purchasing some coins, not worrying too much about the value if you're getting really good value or not, just to get some familiarity. Watch some YouTube videos. Maybe it's mine. There's a lot of other good people who make videos on them, just to get a sense. You can see some people literally going through coins. There's some good books. Like this is not the U.S. coins book, the red book. It's been around for a long time. The values in it are not always the most accurate, but there's some good tangential information, and you can learn which are the right dates. So I don't think you have to. I think you shouldn't go in spending tons and tons of money all over the place, but you can definitely spend whatever is a very small amount for you. Maybe for some people that is, a few $100, but I'm thinking maybe along the lines of like $25 or $50 if you become a long time collector. It's not too much to just sort of get yourself familiar and then figure out what niche within coin collecting you want to pursue, and then target really going for quality over quantity.
Yeah, and that's a common theme with a lot of collectibles that we've noticed across. Actually, something Kent has been pushing on me for quite a while, because we have this debate. For example, like a PSA 9 versus a PSA 10. So the PSA 10 is worth substantially more money. I'm like, why would I go buy one card which is worth X and might appreciate a little bit, but I can find more collectors who could afford the cheaper one. But it incremental, the way it escalates incrementally is smaller, right? Like you get smaller increments on the 9 than you do with the 10. Anyway, Kent and I have been arguing, and I've actually switched. So Kent, you'll be proud of me. I've been buying stuff that's higher quality to move.
Good.
You'll see
Nice.
that. Name wanted to say something real quick. Was cool baseball card game. He used to play War without hockey cards back in the day based on stats. Who had more goals and assists would win the cards. Yeah, my kids.
Fun.
And my kids do that. I've actually taught them how to play War with the hockey cards. It actually started an actual fight. I'm not allowed to do that again. It didn't work out well, so I stopped that.
Awesome.
So we're at the end of our show. I want to first of all thank you, Christian, for coming. This has been an enjoyable conversation. I want to ask you one more question, which is an important question. But before we go there, I would like those of you that do watch this on replay, please make sure you subscribe to Christian Hartch's channel called Treasure Town. Obviously, you can tell from the show he's an extremely intelligent collector. He's got a very good way of explaining things. You can tell from his language and his demeanor. And for a young person, he's showing that, there is a lot of youth in a lot of different collecting circles. So that's another thing to go to. To go check him out, you'll learn something. You never know if your pocket change might be worth a lot of money. So please take the time to go visit Christian. For us, please, if you're enjoying the content, please don't hesitate to subscribe and like our content. It helps us learn as we grow to try and provide more content, and that type of data helps us quite a bit. So, Christian, we're coming on our last question, which is the question we end off all shows. It doesn't have to relate to your hobby. We ask this question carte blanche. Whatever you say, that's what goes at the end of our show. So,
Sweet.
Christian, what inspires you?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm trying to think. So there's one. I'm going to give two answers because that way people can get inspired. I think at least one of these will apply to everybody. So the first one, big thing, I don't talk about a ton on my channel, but I definitely will slip it in at different times. And I think, well, I'll just go for it. I think God, sort of my Christian faith would inspire me in the sense that, from my perspective, God's given us a ton of different blessings, and everybody has their own sort of spiritual gifts. And I think my enjoyment of coins, I can sort of honor him. It's it sort of ties in with the whole, it's a good thing to be doing. So it's a good thing to be promoting. I think a lot of people, it's not super tangibly associated with Christianity, but can just enjoy doing something that bears a lot of fruit in a good way for people, no matter how they're experiencing that. I think that sort of tying into just people enjoying collectibles, it's really cool to see, because there's so much good that comes out of this, and a lot of friendships and a lot of really authentic fun, some careers, some just enjoyable pastimes that can come out of it. So those are the two things.
That's awesome. So those are great answers. And another thing we talked about earlier, and you actually spurred on this conversation, which was outside of our question, which is we want to get rid of all the isms, right? We want to have fun, get rid of all the isms, treat everyone equal, equal rights for women, for people of different classes, culture, and creed. Respect everyone for who they deserve to be respected for. So please, if you get inspired from this, please take it as a sign of goodwill that you want to do good for this earth and promote the good message. So with that, I'm going to end the show. Christian, you hang out in the background, and then folks who are watching will have Anne Marie, who, not the country singer, Anne Marie, the collector. She is the host of the popular Instagram channel, or Instagram handle, I should say, called Women on Tops, featuring collectibles of trading card women in the industry of sport. So we'll talk to you next Tuesday on that one. And Christian, you hang out, and I'm going to hang out, say goodbye to everyone.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for watching.